Hi Zoe.
Hi AJ. So to introduce ourselves, I'm Zoe. I'm Head of Animal Welfare for Mayhew.
Hi, I'm AJ. I'm Deputy Head of Animal Welfare for Mayhew and run the community outreach projects, including TNR.
We're very honoured to be asked to come and talk at the International Cat Day. It's something that we're very passionate about. The Trap, Neuter, Return project we have been running for decades now at Mayhew, and is one of the animal welfare officers' daily roles of dealing with the feral colonies in London. And I have to say, AJ, I am very jealous that I don't get to work on the front line these days, because my role is now office based 100%, and I'm sitting behind a computer most of the time. So I really miss the trapping side of things, and it's not just because of the health benefits for the cats, which is obviously the most important thing. But I just really miss the side of things where we see that these feral cats actually bring communities together. That's something that's really nice. I miss the educational side, and I think it's really lovely when we see how these cats have actually given some of our vulnerable community purpose, which is really lovely. I think it was on the news. I mean, we see it every day anyway, but it was on the news that Brent is one of the most poverty-stricken boroughs in London, and we see that through, the daily work that we do in the community, which is really sad. But we also see the effects that these feral cats have on some of our vulnerable people that call us and ask us for help. We see how these feral cats give them purpose. So, it's just a really nice thing to come out of an animal welfare situation. I love the fact that, we are very educational with our trap, neuter, return. We're not just simply trap, neutering and returning. We're talking with the people. It's a very much a one-to-one approach. We're saying, we're talking to the people and telling them exactly why there are feral cats in the area, and how we're going to help them, and why we help them that specific way. It's as I say, we've seen it actually bring people together. Didn't you have a couple of neighbours that were in dispute? That it brought them together, didn't it?
Yeah, we get we get a lot of calls all the time. It'll be my neighbour has 30 cats, and they're feeding them and they're toileting in my garden, and that you need to come round there and talk with them because they're not caring. And you'll get out to these sort of jobs and find a feral colony there that is sort of just breeding out of control. The population's getting bigger and bigger, and you have this single person who's trying to feed all of these cats and don't know that there's projects out there to be able to step in and offer support for the animals. Once you sort of get that education through and the understanding to the person who's phoning in that they're actually not their cats, they're not owned cats, that it is a feral colony that's thriving in the area, and the neighbour that you think's not looking after their cats is actually doing a really nice thing and trying to provide for those cats. Once you get that sort of across, all of a sudden the person who's been phoning complaining actually wants to help. And I think people find it really interesting because England, we're an animal loving country, and everyone sees these cats and they automatically want the cat to have a home. So people, that their understanding of cats will only be of a domestic cat, really. And you find, we see the whole spectrum from feral to semi-feral to domestic, and then even in between there, you've got,
that's the most difficult.
You can have a stroke with sort of in the garden. Try and take that cat inside the kitchen and it will be sort of climbing the walls. The spectrum of cats we have in London.
That's the main struggle, isn't it, for us? I think the fact that you've got domestic cats, feral cats, and people think that that's it is It's not. There's a whole grey area, and I think, you know, in our borough specifically, you know, a lot of the cats are semi-feral because we are so people populated. They are kind of okay to be within a certain distance of people. And you know, we always joke about, you know, even our foxes are semi-feral in London. I think that's the most difficult thing I've always found, trying to explain to people why we can't just take them away or move them on. And I think for me, the hardest thing is trying to explain to people is the vacuum effect of the feral colonies. You know, if you were to move them away, new feral cats would fill that void, which is very, very sad. And you know, but you know, it's so nice to see the success of our feral colonies and the success of our education in the communities. There's one specific feral colony that stands out for me, is one because we tackled it, you know, a good 12 years ago along Kingsbury shops, the Kingsbury shops in Kingsbury, and there was lots of feral cats there, lots of litters being born, and we trapped probably around 70 cats in over time there. But what I really love is the fact that when we go back there, number one, what I love is going back like a good 5-6 years later and seeing, recognising some of the cats that we neutered, and they're still healthy and alive, which is wonderful. You know, neutering is just amazing. But also, you know, how all the community of the shops, you know, this feral colony is all along the back of the shops. You've got butchers, bakers, restaurants, and that's why, you know, the feral cats were thriving there, because there are so many food sources. And it's just, you know, really lovely to see how that community have come together, just because they've all been a part of helping us trap, neuter and return, and now they're all so much more educated about it and concerned about the cats, and you know, looking out for them, which is really lovely.
And I think the thing is they respect them for what they are as well. You know, they don't look at them and think, oh, you should have a nice loving home. They understand exactly who these cats are, that this is their area, this is where they live, this is where their shelter and all their resources are. And they, you know, they put so much into that relationship without really getting much back from the cats. It's not going to come and sit on your lap and have a cuddle or come and sleep on the end of your bed. And I think that to me is one of the most special things with the TNR project, is seeing how much love and respect people put into these animals, yeah, without really getting much back in that relationship.
Yeah,
Is
I
really
mean,
special.
and also for me, you know, where we've helped, you know, some of the vulnerable people that we've continued to help with feral cats, and you know, like Pete, for example, who lives around the corner from Mayhew, and you know, he's a elderly guy, and you know, he's a bit of a recluse, he's quite isolated, and you know, we've built up a really lovely relationship with him. But just seeing how these feral cats give him purpose, I don't even know. I don't even know whether Pete would still be around today if it weren't for the feral cats, because you know, he gets up and he goes to shops and buys food for them. They are his, you know, his family in a way. You know, I remember some people used to call up and complain about him, like you say, people call up and complain. They're not his cats. You know, unfortunately, someone in the area hadn't neutered their cat, and then boom, you know, it expands. And Pete looks out for these cats, bless him, and he puts food out and shelter for them and feeds them, and you know, he's got a purpose, and he's even started to make friends in that area now, because we've got the lovely Doreen who lives around the corner, and you know, and just mentioned to Doreen, there's a man around the corner who also feeds them. And one day a cat went missing, and you know, it encouraged Pete to go to Doreen's house and knock on the door and ask her if she'd seen one of the cats that he hadn't seen for a while. You know, and then that struck up a conversation and a relationship between them. And we see this all the time in this role, don't we? It's just, and it's such a lovely thing, you know, to come out of a crisis, if you like, the cat crisis. And again, I mean, that's the reason why we're going to be running our own feral cat campaign, because we really want people to, you know, understand feral cats and why they're there, and they're there through no fault of their own, and encourage people to care for them and look out for them. It's really important.
Sort of, we see it all the time. I mean, all the phone conversations we have and the visits that we do out to the feral cats in London, who people's understanding isn't there. Once they get that education, that understanding, you know, completely changes the way they see these cats.
Mm.
You know, from them being all a nuisance to all of a sudden that wanting to provide for them and look out for them and make sure, you know, that they've got that support when they need it. So I think that's something that's quite special. I mean, you're talking about the Kingsbury colony. We've been called out for them all of these years later. You know, if any of them get injured, they're straight on the phone because they know their colony so well. They name them all, don't they? All of the cats have got names, and you know, even with any new cats joining the colonies as well, it's something I find with our big existing ones. We've got one that we've worked on over 2 different roads. I think it's about around 45 cats. And recently a new cat joined. I mean, normally you wouldn't even notice if you've got 45 cats in the area and another one comes along, who would notice that kind of thing? Whereas the people we've worked with and built up these relationships with, straight away they know hang on, who's this one who's come along now? And we're called straight away, which is
Yeah.
just, you know, it's amazing how much love they put into to caring for these animals.
Yeah. And I also think that, you know, partly of why, you know, we're quite successful with the work that we do is that, you know, some people are sometimes too frightened to call us up about things or think that they're going to be blamed in some way, and you know, it's really good to try and encourage people to, you know, approach us and talk to us about this, because, you know, at the end of the day, the more people that understand this, the more people can help and raise awareness and tell each other, you know, speak to each other and their neighbours about the situation, and then, you know, and then educate their own community again, which is something that we see and have been really successful with. It's really important messaging. Oh, well, thank you for this lovely chat today, AJ.
All right, so
I love to have a chat about things, the positives out of a crisis. It's really nice to see, you know, human behaviour change and the power of the human and animal bond, you know, out of the, you know, the seriousness of the work that, you know, the animal welfare work that we do isn't always nice, but it's so nice to see a positive outcome.